Welcome to episode 33 of Korea Talk. We're just going to kind of review the finals and discuss our thoughts about them, and then that's pretty much it, I think, unless anyone else has any other topics they're going to add. So, without, well, I guess everything's over. So, spoiling it, SKT won 3-1 over Rocks, which was quite a surprise, only dropping game two. And what do you guys think of the series overall?
Thought it was really good.
It was, best LCK series we had so far. Our finals.
Yeah, best, I think, top three best of five we've had in the history of LCK as well. When you think about actually how how few good ones there have been. There was a CJ versus SKT, and then
It's
there
the only
was
other one that pops out to my mind.
KT vs Rocks is pretty good to me.
Yeah,
Last summer.
yeah,
And
Jin had a couple of good best of fives when they in the regionals, but that wasn't actually LCK. That's like a Riot tournament, like a strictly 100% Riot. So yeah, I would say that it was realistically like one of the top three best of five we've had in actual LCK.
It's kind of disappointing. Like kind of sad thinking about it.
But yeah, since we have so little best of fives.
Well, yeah, there's only 6 a year due to the way that the system works, and so in that aspect, and then a lot of the problem as well has been that a lot of them have been pretty one-sided, whereas this was actually quite back and forth, I thought, and it was probably one of the closer 3-1s I've ever watched when you looked at there were game 2, 3, and 4 could have been won by both teams at multiple points realistically, you know what I mean?
Game 1 was the only one that was you watched it and
that was just
just obviously inevitable after a while.
Yeah, if you scratch game 1 out, then it was actually a really, really good best of 3, if you think about it that way, and very sort of high level back and forth. The game 1 was such a horrendous shit show. I really don't know what happened in game 1.
That early mistake just snowballed the game so hard. It was unreal.
Yeah, that level 1 really pushed it, and then they didn't have it seemed like
and then
they needed to win early, and then with that it was pretty obvious where Peanut would be or forced to be almost the entire early game until they got to the point where the bot lane was okay being by themselves again.
Yeah,
and that really he was never able to kind of go mid or bottom lane and really get anything going for them, which really was a huge burden for the entire team.
Yeah, well, the other big issue as well was that draft phase by Rocks was terrible. They got
not great. Yeah,
the only thing that I consider close to a priority pick they got is Graves, and they gave up.
Well, it's not a priority pick when you trade it for
yeah, exactly, and they traded that. They didn't even take it wasn't like they got the Graves and they put Blank on a lease. They got the Graves and he got Kindred. Okay,
they thought it was at that point, because it was the first game, they thought, because Blanco had such a good record on Graves, they thought let's take it away from Blank and see what happens,
Yeah.
But it clearly didn't pan out, because Blank can also play the other ones to at least some good level, and he was playing very well on the Kindred and making an impact. It was not worth their first rotation.
Not like he's Bangy.
Yeah, exactly. They thought get away from the Graves. So because a lot of junglers right now, if they don't get Graves, they don't feel so impactful. I'm thinking about Lyra and Ambition as well. I feel like Graves is always their best pick from the top 3, even though they're still good on the other ones too. Well, except Ambition. But yeah, they thought it would work. But it's not worth your first rotation. They were like, let's secure Alistar, which it's good for Gorilla, but it's also not really a takeaway from Wolf, who plays a lot of other stuff like the Tom Kench. So the whole draft, the first rotation, was kind of pointless from Rocks, but they thought it was effective at that time. They realized it after that game. Oh yeah, this was a mistake.
But I think they think Rocks throughout the entire series placed a large amount of prioritization on Alistar. I think their first rotation they picked it 3 times or and I get it, Alistar's a really strong champion, and I get it for Gorilla in terms of he's a really good Alistar player and all that kind of thing. But the issue I have is that you shouldn't it wasn't really that much of a takeaway to take it that early on. And when in the regular season, when Gorilla was playing a lot of Alistair, the reason I liked it was the fact that they were picking it low down in the draft.
Yep.
So it was like, because the other team had to take too many picks away from Rocks because they could carry on too many champions, Gorilla always got his Alistair, as it were.
Yeah, they just picked it because it was open in the regular season, not because
they
wanted it.
In this series, they picked it because they wanted it, which was like very confusing.
It's okay, but like you can't put that much priority on the support right now. Definitely, if there's enough support picks open, it's not relevant to go for the Alistar that much because he's not that much more effective.
There were no real other.
Yeah, there were no bans.
Like no bans for support at all, which was very weird to see. Like it got first picked a couple times too, which is just like very weird considering both of these. I don't think I think Gorilla is the better support, but I don't think either support's going to be. Oh my God, we need to play this one champion or else I'm going to fall super far behind. I mean, any of the meta support picks, either of them could have played. There's like 4 or 5 options that they could have played, and I don't think any of it would have been an issue for their team.
Like definitely, if you see how this the series was won by SKT, it's they put priority on the right champions and the right positions, while Rox was more like we have to get Alistar for some reason, and we have to kind of. Well, I mean, I get why they picked the Graves that first game. That was not bad per se, but like you saw in SKT, it was like right, the 2 top lane, like there are only 3 top lane picks good right now. 2 are banned. Let's make sure we get the fucking 3rd one. So we have Duke on a good champion where he can be effective on and impact team fights, and then Smap has to play with Nautilus, which is not that great right now at all.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to go to the first game as well, like you can't. Like the Nautilus as well, like that was so like Smith was the only one who picked Nautilus, even when Duke couldn't get Poppy, Echo, or Maokai. He went for the Rammus instead, and they were like, "Oh, we're not sure about this Rammus. Not sure." They did really well that pick, Rammus pick, but like my issue is that first game draft really kind of like it was like the Corki mid and the Ezreal bot lane as well. Now the Ezreal I kind of got because that was a power pick throughout the series, and that is a bit of, well, you know, whatnot. The Corki mid lane, I don't really get what, like that's kind of I consider that pretty out of meta these days. Like Corki got nerfed a bit, and ultimately, like I think you need to have a mid laner with teleport on it, or it'd be LeBlanc. Like I would have much preferred a LeBlanc in that scenario than the Corki. Like
Corki used to be very strong because he's very oppressive in lane, and he still is kinda. But if the other player picks TP, like they don't really care about Corki because he never has enough mana or damage to straight out solo somebody. And if they have TP, they just like, yeah, okay, they got poked out. Let's just recall to base, TP back in lane, and just keep farming. Like, and they always have more advantage because they have the TP. Like, yeah, it's not a great pick.
No, and then. So like, and then the game. So not only was the draft phase really bad because it felt like SKT just kind of got like a really well-rounded power pick team comp. Rox got a bunch of scraps, and then like that level 1 happened where Prey had to burn both summoners, so he got super far behind the lane, and because there was no bot lane pressure in the top side rather, that meant Wolf could roam down to the mid lane and gank Kuro. And the big story of this and the big play that really underperformed in this series was Kuro. So, like, that first gank when he was on Corki, where he W's towards Faker's tower, so he W's, like, forward, just coming from behind, and then he flashes, like, adjacent towards the river kind of thing. So, like, he didn't really make any kind of, like, he could have just W'd that way and he would have got the same amount of distance, but he W'd and flashed to get the same amount of distance that he could have just got from a well-timed W. Now, I'm not sure whether he W'd trying to go in and then
I think that was the case. I don't think he had seen Blank at that point yet.
Which
is I think really, you have to consider that.
Yeah, which is really like bad, sort of like unlucky from his point of view. But then he should have a bit more kind of, you know, perspective about it. Kind of like we all moan about it in, you know, solo queue or whatever. Like you get ganked and that's the time that you've used your escape tool to go in or whatever. You're like, the one fucking time I go in, jungler shows up, but. This is a big match kind of thing. He needs to play smarter around that.
Yeah, that's definitely important.
You can't be that far pushed up, then W in when your top lane has got no pressure.
Yeah, that was a real issue.
And you should have a vague idea that Blank would be on the top side of the map, as it were. So it would be very easy for him to do the wraparound in that situation. So, yeah, it was like I think Peanut played fine. I think he could have played better in some games, but I don't think he played that badly. Smeb just suffered from the picks that he had. The one time he got a good pick, he had a really good game. Like, well, he played pretty well on the Poppy as well. He didn't play amazingly well. Like he probably the lane should have gone better than it did. But
he still played pretty well in the fights and stuff. Like you
Yeah.
can't really do more in because since Poppy's like pure physical damage right now as well. Like Aramis really
Yeah.
doesn't care. I think so.
yeah. And like Prey had a good series as well. So like the real issue on that team is Kuro, and there was a point where he was on Lissandra and Faker was on Vel'Koz, and he should have like got the solo kill because he did all the hard work for the solo kill, and then he fucked it up. Like
I actually like when I rewatched it, like he couldn't do more. He did everything perfect, but the last Q just couldn't connect anymore. So he got like pretty unfortunate, and he tried really good. He landed all his skills perfectly to actually secure that kill, but because the cleanse also reduces the CC, like the ult got cancelled so fast that he actually was able to get out. It was
But my point is that either get the kill or don't. Like the worst one is when somebody goes for a kill and ends up going way too deep and dying as a result of it.
Well, yeah, the problem is he went in and at that point it's like, oh yeah, I have to kill Faker now or I'm dead anyway. So like,
Yeah.
because if
It
you
wasn't just that, because more people went in. Like that became a huge overcommitment from Rocks. That was like multiple times.
that was
kept
the
seeing
biggest issue.
way overcommit.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
they were
and then there was the point as well when he went on Chandra and he went towards the Baron and got like just wandered straight in without any vision and face checked. Yeah, like face checked. He did a Hachani, which is never a good thing to do.
You should have expected at least somebody be there.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
they had no vision on the Baron. They just they were doing it, but they were expecting it, but they had no idea if they were actually.
He should have a blue trinket ward and just drop a blue trinket. I don't think he had a blue trinket at that
He
point.
had yellow that game.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he didn't even ever change. So.
Yeah. Like I like Koro, and I think that over his career he's done a lot of good work and whatnot, but he has always shat the bed when he's played Faker. Realistically, like he plays pretty well against some other players. He plays pretty well against other elite mid laners. It's not even a case of like Faker's like that much better than him or something like that. I think there's just something about his mental state when he plays Faker. Just kind of, this is the second time I've seen him really shit the bed in the final. I'll put that there because obviously he played really bad in the last spring final versus Easy Hoon, but this is the he has played well in. He did play all right in the Worlds final versus Faker, but
yeah, and in the regular season he does not bad most of the time versus Faker
There's just something about when he plays Faker in like a big match, he just doesn't seem to kind of because obviously there's the NLB final as well where Faker made that. What annoys me about that Yasuo play that Faker made in the NLB is that Kuro should have got the solo kill there and messed up. Like he missed his Orianna ball like 3 times in a row. So.
Yeah, also I watched the when you watch the trash talk segment in the beginning, you I kind of felt from that after all because I watched it after the series. I was like, man, Kuro does not feel confident. Like in his trash talk, his face was always like, dude, he seems really panicky to play against Faker again. He was like, oh, why again against him? And it's been I definitely see but I don't agree with you that Prey had a great series. I think Prey had a better series than Kuro for sure, but Prey has been better than Kuro pretty much ever.
I'm talking but you got to think the Twitch game that wasn't I don't think that was
the
a
last
good
one
pick.
was his fault.
I don't think that was
the Twitch he couldn't do that much about it. He played
the
it
last
much
kill
as
where
well
he
as
got
could.
he walked into Ezreal. He just pathed the wrong way, and then Ezreal EQW'd, and they all hit him.
Yeah, but I mean, to go back to
that was unlucky, dude.
To go back down to breaking it down game by game as well, when you look at SKT's team comp that they had in game 1, the thing that stuck out to me was his team comp is really, really difficult to fight against because there's a Kindred ult, a Zillion ult, and the Tahm Kench.
It's not the first time they did this. Yeah,
it's like a immortal comp. All they need is like a Yorick, and you good to go. Like everyone keeps fucking reviving or being protected or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah,
reminds me of that old Moscow 5 comp where they used to run Yorick top, Zillion mid, kind of thing with a Cogmore, and it was like you just can't fucking kill the Cogmore ever.
Exactly.
I do think that the way that Rox just then put Zillion on permaban for the rest of the series, I think that was very problematic for them because it meant that like they kind of had to give up priority picks in other lanes, and I don't think Zillion's that strong. So I think Zillion in that team comp was really good.
Yeah, it's in certain good team. Well, most of the team comps SK plays Zillion works well with though. Which is weird. Like I'm not sure if they should have been prepared for the Zillion, and maybe they thought they were with the Corki, but like yeah, it really didn't work out. And then they just said like yeah, let's just ban it because we don't know how to deal with it. Which eventually was not that bad because they just swapped the Azir ban for the Zillion ban, which kind of worked out, sort of, because they didn't have to play Zillion anymore, and they never really struggled with the Azir because they played against it once. Well, they did struggle with the Azir, but at least they won that game.
Yeah.
And then SKT just didn't want to play it anymore.
The only time they like struggled against Azir was when they were trying to 1-3-1, with the three being Elise, Ezreal, and Alistair. Like that's not a strong three together. And then even then, it was kind of just Ezreal praised Ezreal stayed a bit too far, and then got killed by Faker doing Faker things. Like I don't think that they really struggled against it, but it was definitely you could just see it, and it was wow. Why were you standing so close?
Azir kept the game close for a long time. Like, longer than it should have been, considering Praise.
But that's all. He always does that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's my point.
That's kind of an Azir thing to do as well.
Yeah.
Like it was the Jin Air game where they did the same thing with Azir, where they dragged it out for ages and then won with it.
Exactly.
My biggest surprise was them. Like they played Nautilus, and then SKT played the same. Like they saw what they were able to do to KT when they picked Nautilus. They really shut him down game one. And what was the other one where they played? And it was just, the Cassiopeia. It was just like they played Cassiopeia and they baited around Baron. Like you should know that those things are happening after you've seen it happen against previous teams. Is those things? Yeah, you may play against the Cassiopeia, and yeah, she might kind of skate around. But what you said, Sam, was when you need the blue trinkets, you need to check every bush because one Cassiopeia basically won them a game.
Yeah.
And it did again in this series.
Multiple.
Yeah, well, I mean, I still kind of want to focus on game one, but
I mean, we've been bouncing around. We can
we
can just go game by game now.
That much to talk more. Like it just got really unfortunate. Like poor draft, and then when they fall behind so hardly, the Kenrid just got ran over the comp, and then
Rox definitely went for the lane swap in like so many games and didn't get it once as well. That was very problematic for them as well. They really did want that lane swap.
Yeah. Though I mean, working with game 3, they actually were able to play the lane very well.
Yeah.
So it wasn't always that bad.
Well, game 3 they picked the Twitch simply because they saw Vel'Koz, Ezreal, and it was like and Tahm Kench. There were very few people that could dive into them. Which is, if you're ever going to pull out a Twitch, seems like it's a very great comp to go up against.
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, you also want to go like pretty close with Twitch himself. I
just mean that there's not a lot of dive. Like
no,
you're not really going to be able to get dive going on. So.
Yeah, you can't really lock the Twitch down that hard. That's true.
Yeah. So game 1 was really, really disappointing, but then I kind of wasn't that worried from game 1 because Roxas throughout the season they've always played better in game 2 than they have done in game 1, except for that series they had against Samsung where they won game 1 and lost game 2 and 3.
Yeah,
that is the only time that they've ever kind of like started off the series well and declined. Normally they would start it off like slow to medium, and like game 2 was a blowout, as it were.
Yeah.
And it like kind of, but I think it like that game 1 just affected the way Rox, because I think Rox came in with a certain way they wanted to play the game, and then that game 1 kind of wrecked the way they wanted to play the game. So I think they kind of were in a bit of panic mode throughout the rest, like trying to sort of catch up, if you know what I mean. Like,
but it's weird though, because it's like it's not really the way they used to play, and it's not a great way to play in this meta anyway. Like AAA decomps are really hard to pull off, and you have so little protection for them. So I mean, I'm confused why they wanted to go with the Corki so much.
Yeah, it's not even like throughout the regular season they've shown a particular drive towards Corki either.
Not more than usual, not other champions. So I mean, Corki was always meta the majority of the time, but
Let me just look it up.
And most of the time, Corki was. Yeah, I'm just saying, Corki had actually a negative win rate on Corki when the final started. So yeah, it's not like they ever did well on the Corki.
Yeah, I think that's one of the only champions he had a negative win rate on as well.
I think it was 1 and 2 or something. So
no, he went 1 and 1. So he played Corki twice.
Okay. I mean, like, yeah, exactly. Twice. Like from all the champions, it's weird that they try to prioritize something that it's not the greatest in this meta and where they're not even that good at. So
yeah, like I mean, Kuro was a bit unlucky in the sense that his main pick Victor was nerfed halfway through the season and is now, whereas like the Azir kind of then came into popularity. So that would kind of like that was like there's nothing that's not his fault that Azir like gets like a lot of glitch like, bug fixes and gets a sort of smoother kit and manages and then BDD reinnovates it back into the meta and then and his Victor gets kind of fucked because he was before when Azir was really strong he could always balance it out by playing the Victor into the Azir and he was a really good Victor so that was fine but
I mean there's still plenty of other stuff Kuro has been playing all throughout the season like
well this is my point like he played LeBlanc 9 times
exactly where's LeBlanc
it wasn't banned or picked this entire series. It's still a good pick. He had 5 games of Lulu and 5 games of TF as well, and he didn't play TF at all.
He didn't even play. He didn't try Karma. I mean, Karma is very similar to the Lulu now that Lulu kind of got some nerfs.
Yeah, like
I was very surprised that because the first game they picked the Corki because they wanted like they picked it before SKT picked their mid lane, so they didn't know who they were going to go against. I was just surprised they didn't just pick a relative supportive mid laner who can wave clear and do some damage.
It is surprising in this meta. Like I have such a high focus on double AD comps with a supportive mid laner that they didn't seem to be able to play Karma or Zillion, which are super good picks right now for the comps.
Yeah. Like, it's very weird. It's very weird that Kuro can't play Zillion as well because that seems like a champion that would be in his skill set. Like it's a control mage. You know what I mean? Like he's a control mage kind of player. It's, game 1 was it was a very anticlimactic way to start off as well. I was really excited for the final and it was such a blowout. I was like, what the hell was that? Yes. And it just put them on the back foot like immediately. And yeah, they recovered well in game 2, but I think like given how close the other 3 games were, it's actually really annoying that the game was so one-sided and such a kind of like a derp from them. Because who knows, like if you take game 1 out, then they still would have had 1 game to come back, and they might have been able to, get another game or something like that kind of thing. But because game 1 was the way it was like straight away.
Yeah, I mean maybe, but like I don't feel like even at the end at the 4th game that they seem to grasp enough how the meta should be played and how to like abuse SKT.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe an extra game would have helped, but I mean, still, it's a best of 5. Like, you have to take that first game. Like,
yeah, exactly. I'm only talking sort of hypotheticals, as it were. But we'll say like Blank in game 1 played really well. I thought.
Oh yeah, he definitely abused like the lead, and that's what you do.
He abused the lead they had from that level 1
level 1
because they got to know where Peanut would be, and he got to really able to avoid him and go wherever they wanted to.
I mean, and also throughout the series, there was just so much more vision control in the early game, mostly presented by Blank and just the entire team. Comparatively, like Rox was like, I was constantly watching the first 50 minutes, like almost no wards from Rox in deep, and then but you always had some deep vision from SKT, like or protective vision. So like, I feel like not just like Blank, like you played pretty well just individually in ganking, but also just like there was so much more vision control, where he is noted for because he had a higher wards per minute than Peanut, and just in general, Rox has always played a lot less with earned vision than the other teams have. Kind of makes up for like being weaker individually, but there was vision, and then he just abused Nautilus because it's such an abusable pick and lane if you have Kindreds, because you can't get away from her.
Yeah.
Game 1 was just that level 1, and it really they were able to like SKT is good enough that they could snowball off of that one tiny issue. Is they played out the rest of the game knowing they'd have that advantage and were able to continue to keep that advantage the entire time. And it was very nice to watch them do that, but it was also disappointing that like.
Well, it wasn't a tiny issue; it was a pretty large issue, realistically. Like Prey was like, you know,
He
there was
lost
a
both
point,
the summoners right away. Yeah.
yeah, and there was a point where Bang was level 3 and he was level 1. Like
Right.
that's fucking nightmare
Yeah,
scenario. That is
that's
kind of
definitely
thing.
true.
And then he was already in a losing matchup, as it were. Like, and they didn't get the lane swap. Like it was really like it really was quite a big issue kind of thing. Like that is, if the tables were turned, Rox would have been able to snowball that advantage.
Yeah.
Maybe they wouldn't have done it as
Probably.
cleanly, but they would have. I think they would have, like, you know.
I think both of them
Of
could have. I
course,
mean, it was just so huge because Ezreal just couldn't do really anything early because he had to take E and he blew both the summoner. It was just there were so many issues with that it really created. It was to watch SKT really never let up on the reins was impressive.
Oh yeah,
But,
of course, but you know, it's a high-level Korean League of Legends match kind of thing. Like you expect
Yeah.
that. That's what you expect. It's not LA,
Yeah, I
is
mean,
it? Like
it was
Exactly,
very
that's
exciting to
the
see
point.
that, but in the end of the day, like that was the most disappointing game of them all.
yeah.
Simply because it was like, oh, it was there was such imbalance from minute 1.
Game 2 was obviously a lot better from Rox in the sense they managed to win. I actually think that was probably the main game where the draft went even. I think both teams kind of drafted well. Like that was the thing. SKT never had a bad draft
No,
throughout
they
the
had,
season.
like,
Like they either won or they went even in the draft. Like I thought.
there they chose in game 2 they chose to trade the Echo, but they got a 0 for it, and they got
Which is
got
not
the
a good idea, but
it's not necessary, but like at least you have Poppy, so it's not like a complete washout. But yeah, the problem was that the Echo had such an impact on the bot lane for SKT that Bang never got to a sensible point in his item build, like in the entire game, to be useful. Like he got always pressured out in team fights, and even though whatever Pickett tried to do, it was never enough. And you know, Duke, yeah, Poppy's useful, but Echo just, you know, he can go in twice, you know, or even 3 times. Like he can keep going in, while Poppy just at some point just dies.
it wasn't even just that the Poppy was less useful. It was just that Duke made the mistake of teleporting first back into lane, and with their top lane being a bit overextended. And he probably didn't know the ward was behind him.
I think that's
that
what
Echo ward, like that Echo TP, right as Poppy was TPing, was excellent because that really started the game. Like that really started Rock's the ability to take a sizable advantage and kind of run with it.
Yeah, and they also had because they had the blue Ezreal as well, and that was like getting like quite a lot of gold. Like they gave them kind of a late game assurance as well, kind of thing. And that's why then like with late game team fights, like Prey just kind of like cut through everything, you know, like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah. The moment you get like your 4 items on blue Ezreal, you kill everything. Like nothing can actually. I mean, you can get killed, but like you have lifesteal armor, but you have all the items to effectively duel anything in the game. So yeah, it's very effective. While Bang to like build more. The build isn't finished yet. She still had to start with his armor penetration. It was so far behind it. Like in just effectiveness in team fights, like Prey was miles ahead, even though he was not that far ahead in gold. It was just way more effective because of blue Ezreal. And yeah.
The only worrying thing from game 2 is how they played out with the Baron at first. The first Baron, how they kind of wasted it. They lost Prey, and then they went for a 4v5 fight, and it was just not great. I mean, they came out almost even, but it was just like you saw that it was like, okay, you guys are still having, like, you needed to completely shake off game 1 and just kind of pretend it never existed, because they seemed to try and take. Usually, like when they would do something crazy, it was either because one, it's seeming like they didn't care the entire game, like they'd be super aggressive from the beginning, but you'd expect them to kind of hold back on the outs, like the insanity aggression. But they had some moments of that where they would dive too deep or go after kills too far, team fight when they could have just like walked away and kept split pushing. There were a few issues I saw with that throughout the series. There were times where they were taking things too far.
Yeah, but even with all that, the series was still pretty close overall. So like that, like I think SKT definitely played. This was the best series SKT played all so far this year, at least.
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't the worst series I've seen Rox play this year. Obviously, you know, there's like the series against KT, the one against Samsung, and stuff like that. But it definitely felt like SKT peaked at the right time and Rox kind of declined at the right time. You know what I mean? Like
I more want to kind of blame it on the meta a bit,
Yeah.
because like legit, it just what's the last couple of weeks that the meta completely shifted to the triple tank top lane, where Smap was a lot less like he cannot carry that hard, but I'm still like just confused why Rocks throughout the entire series wanted to play around Prey that much, but Prey has never been their primary carry, which is like, that bugged me. Because it's weird. Like on one side they were, but then when they realized, I mean, they should have realized that Azrael was a priority pick. They didn't care for it anymore, and they just let SKT have it all the time. It's just like I don't know. They had they wanted to proc spray, but then they didn't seem to realize what was the most effective for Prey to carry on. And it's
my issue with the meta. If I had a complaint about the meta, it was simply that it robbed us of seeing a best of 5 with Smeb versus Duke going in on each other. Like I would have loved to see them both pick up carry champions and fight it out. That would have been probably one of the more exciting lane phases to watch. Because if you're looking at this, Prey, Gorilla, and Bang Wolf are going to be pretty even. And then you have
what? They did have that solo kill or the
they had.
duo
I mean,
kill.
they had a few fights, but like if you're thinking about the entire series, like the only lanes that are going to be exciting are the ones that get impacted from Peanut and Blank because tank versus tank is super boring.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean,
so
the entire series,
without
like,
that, I would have.
They farmed against each other and then they tried to be as impactful as possible in team fights.
Like, I just would have loved to see Smeb and Duke both get carry champions and just fight, and it would have been marvelous to see.
Yeah, well, I mean, Duke's always been more of a tank player than a carry, like a sort of like a you know, an AP player or something like that in the top lane. Realistically, like even when he was on Najin and stuff like that, he always trended towards tanks rather than trending towards carries. I mean, obviously he plays his Fiora's okay, but it's not fantastic. And he's never been a Riven player or something like that either.
It's still, I don't know. So like that's my biggest complaint about the change of meta. It's not like I don't think it really affected either team significantly. I just would rather have been able to watch.
It helps SKT.
Really go. I mean, it helped SKT, but it's not like that was the deciding factor.
No, I don't think so. Like, my issue is how the Rock seemed to like handle the meta, and they didn't seem to completely understand or focus correctly in how to like win with their comps and what they needed to have in their comps to win. It was a bit weird. Like first they don't start with double TP and then they finally go for it, but then they never seem to execute on it properly. Because almost every time they double TP'd, and they were playing double TP versus, I mean, Faker had the pressure champion that can run TP. They always fucked it up by always like somebody getting caught before the TPs went through, or I don't know. It was disappointing to see game 3 and 4 their TP usage.
Yeah. In game 2 as well, I think that it kind of game 2 was closer to how I expected Rocks were going to play this entire series, but because I think that there was a point where I was like, they can't actually realistically lose this game now because they've got the late game scaling and they've got enough of a gold lead to kind of just do it really. So Faker had a good go at trying to get him back into it, and he made they made 2 nice picks in the mid lane off the back of Faker, but then like when Rocks won that 3v5 team fight at the Baron, like that kind of was like, yeah, that was how that kind of symbolized how I thought that game was going to go in that moment, because I was like, I don't really think Rocks can lose this game, so they can even win a 3v5 team fight. You know what I mean? Because the right ultimates were down and stuff like that.
The only way I saw them ever lose is as Bang gets 5 items, because at that point he could kind of straight, but that was still like so far away that like, yeah.
Yeah, he had just finished his 4th item by near the end of the game too.
Yeah,
so.
he finished it when he died, I think. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like Faker had to keep stalling and stalling, and they almost did it with the Baron, but because they were never able to get that Baron because there was so much smoke from Rock's side. So and then when they just completely lost the fight there, it was over. So, yeah, what should have happened, so it did. So it was good. They definitely made use of their early advantage, and with that first TP, just started the entire snowball of that game.
Yeah. So with game 3, what did you think about the Twitch pick, Peter?
I didn't hate it. No, I didn't hate it at all, because But definitely because Prey has always been a pretty good Twitch. I just hate that people and that apparently the mindset is still to go Blade Rune King, while it's only an effective item against high HP targets. But he doesn't necessarily care too much about Duke. He should want to assassinate Faker and Bang, so kill all the damage, or most of the damage, and you're fine. Like he still have the Nautilus, and yeah, Prey could have played it a bit better, but like I don't hate the pick per se, and it actually worked out pretty well in laning and stuff. I just wish he had done more with it, tried to do more. Like they only had that one attempt when when SKT kind of over pushed or stayed after they won that fight, and then they used the ambush and the re-engage to get some picks. But that was like the only time they really effectively did that, and most of the time like they never used the Twitch stealth as much as I would love to see them use it. You know?
Yeah, like my issue with the Twitch pick, I think Prey is a really, really good Twitch, and I think he's like, you know, him and him are probably the best Twitch players, you know, in Korea or in the history of Korean League of Legends at least. My problem with the Twitch was even when I was watching it, I was like, there are picks that could be doing, like, they're not utilizing the ambush well enough to justify this pick. And therefore there are champions that would do what they are actually doing with the Twitch better than the Twitch itself is functioning. So like and then there were a couple of moments as well where like Prey used the ambush actually, like I thought incorrectly. Like so there was a point early on in one of the games where there was like a big fight in the bot lane and everyone kind of TP'd down for it.
Oh yeah.
He was like isolated, so he was like near to his turret, and then there were 3 SKT members, or the SKT members were like grouped up, and then all the other rocks were like sort of on the other side. So it was like a battle of 2 fronts, and he like ambushed in, and then like just got blown up immediately.
Yeah,
kind of thing,
but I think I didn't rewatch that because I kind of wanted to. I think he underestimated the ambush duration, and I think he just got revealed.
Yeah,
without him expecting it, and then they just like that was like my issue. Like he on his own kind of fucked up their TP play because I saw it happen. It was like, yeah, they're overextended, 2 TPs, this is gonna happen, and then just Prey dying just completely turned that fight around. Well, if he hadn't done that, they would have probably won that skirmish and with the TP advantage they had. It was
like I always say, if you're an AD carry and you die first, you fucked up at some point in that realistically kind of thing.
Yeah,
like
definitely how he did it.
Yeah. And then in the final team fight as well, he was kind of lucky because he got pop-healed by Duke into the wolf pit, so he had to like it added like an extra 2 seconds for him to kind of get around back again, and then he came back, and then he got almost kind of insta-gibbed again because then
he got
managed
to
get the
right
angle.
into the wall.
Yeah, so there were multiple occasions where I was like, he should be playing the angle better than it is, because everyone knows what Poppy's looking to do. She's looking to ram you into that wall, really. So, like, yeah,
well,
it was...
before that, with the ult, you should be understanding that you can't stand by yourself without that, because if you get knocked away, you're the team's damage.
I'm less inclined to give him shit for the ultimate than getting the Poppy angle on himself, because that's kind of like, you know what the Poppy's constantly doing is looking to do is to get the angle. So you shouldn't really give her an opportunity to get the angle. It's not particularly easy. It wasn't a good place for him to be standing in terms of like, it gave Poppy, because that's quite a narrow choke point, so it gives Poppy a lot of potential angles she can get, but there's still a way you can stand so that she won't do it. But that highlights the problem with Twitch, is that he doesn't get enough time to stand still and auto attack, because of the certain champions that are in the meta that are good at jumping on carries that stand still a lot. This is why we don't see like MF or Cogmore or the Twitch, is because they have to stand still too much.
Yeah.
I think the only time we've seen an AD carry that stands still in the last 3-4 months was Cogmo, when he was just retardedly broken. Where you just had one ability that gave you so much. Every other AD carry has been able to be mobile. I mean, even Caitlyn, she is an AD carry that likes to stand and auto attack, but she brings a lot with the traps. She brings a lot with her. She doesn't have to just stand still. She can constantly move too. So
yeah, but she's also got a really long range as well.
Yeah,
that definitely helps.
And she's got an escape kind of thing. So in that aspect, like Caitlyn's a really safe AD carry, whereas Twitch is really like risky.
It's a high risk, high reward.
So, and there were multiple times where like the risk like outweighed
reward.
The reward, as it were, because obviously if he could have got that spray and pray off, it would have wrecked the team fight. But he never really got a massive spray and pray that kind of tore through SKT, which is why you pick that Twitch, because he doesn't have great utility. His siege is terrible, and he's really really risky to play, as it were. Like so. That's why I said there were picks that the way that they played that Twitch, I would have preferred to see. So it wasn't like I was like, why would you ever pick that Twitch? It was fucking terrible. It was just like the way that Prey played it.
Yeah, I think Twitch is pretty good right now. But yeah, it's like it's a niche pick. You have to know how to play around, and I feel like they were not too practiced with it. Or Prey wasn't individually, or the team around it. I definitely noticed that from the games. Like, yeah, you probably practiced it, but not enough to make justify that pick, because it's too hard to pull off, and like you really need to be very good on it. Like when something White used that pick before, like, and even Blue did, they were very practiced on it, and you constantly had the mid lane ganks with it, and just a lot of constant pressure that you used to have with the Twitch. I mean, it was a bit different at the time, but still, the concept is the same, you know.
And even with White and Blue, they wouldn't have the Twitch wouldn't come in until after they saw specific like stuns or specific CC abilities go down.
Well, I mean,
like, he would stay back with his support or stay really far back, because that was when mage supports were in vogue too. And he would stay in the back line and kind of just maybe auto attack the AD or tanks a bit. And once he saw like the ability goes down that he knew he could, then he would like move forward and open up with the spray and pray.
Yeah, but I mean, that is a different matter. It's a lot easier to play Twitch back then, and you've also got to remember like that, like Twitch was also a lot stronger back then because he got nerfed after Worlds.
Yeah, but he got buffed a lot since then again.
Yeah, but
that's why he's pretty good again.
He's still not as strong as he was, is the point I'm making.
I can't remember what type specific nerf. But like my show as well, it's like, why didn't he build armor pen? Like he knew Duke was in his face. Just like keep. Like if you're not gonna be able to, if you just be able to kill Duke, you can pray and spray the rest later. Like it's so weird that he like to ignore. See, this is why I hate. Like he goes Blade from King, but that's a tank killing item that you don't go armor penetration, and that Blade from King is pretty fucking useless. So why do you build it? It does physical damage. These builds. Just, if he had built armor pen, he could have just killed Duke and then still hit the backline together. Like just position yourself that you don't get stunned by Duke, but then you can still like hit him and hit the backline as well. Like.
Yeah, and then the other issue as well was that again, Smeb was on Nautilus, and again could do so much less than Duke could on Poppy. Like,
he tried, and he had some.
He did very well, but as soon as the ultimate went down, you could see the relevance of Poppy versus the relevance of the Nautilus. Nautilus he could do a lot, and then once he pops his ult, like, oh wow, he's doing a lot of damage, he's getting a lot of CC down, and as soon as that's down, you're like, and Poppy is running around doing so much more.
Because her local on Q and E can constantly keep doing damage, and you know Q is percentable magic hell damage. It's percentable damage. Nautilus doesn't have percentable damage. This is an issue if you're a tank like game. You do nothing anymore of damage.
And then like Smeb had a great series. Smeb played really well this entire series.
Played as well as he could.
Yeah, like because I think he's the best player in the world. The issue Smeb had was he was put on dog shit Nautilus for 2 games kind of thing. Like I haven't seen Nautilus win a game since he got nerfed. Like this thing, Nautilus did get nerfed as well.
I think Colin won a game with it or something.
Oh yeah. Well, I
haven't
like, and
I don't know. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. I've always said it was bad since the nerfs. It's not great.
Yeah, and what was frustrating for me as well was that I don't believe that all Smeb had prepared was the 3 primary top laners and Nautilus.
That does feel weird, yeah.
He had to have had other things in his wheelhouse of fun, but he just never played any of those. Now, whether or not in his mind he thought, oh, the Nautilus pick wasn't the issue in game 1, the Nautilus pick is still good, and then he picked it in game 2, where it clearly wasn't good. Like, it was very... But then you know that it's not good because you saw KT get their head caved in with it kind of thing. Like, you know... and then you saw that SKT's unwillingness to pick the Nautilus, because when Rocks tried to do to SKT what they had done to them the entire series, they picked the Rammus, which was more effective. I mean, and Rammus is still not an amazing top laner and stuff like that, but in the context and the way that Duke played it, it was good, and Duke played his balls off in that.
But if you have to choose a tank top laner, Rammus is still way more effective than Nautilus is, just because. I mean, yeah, he has no wave clear, even though his ult is in 6-second cooldown and you can clear waves like it's nothing. But he's still more effective because he's way tankier, and this taunt is always so annoying because you have to put QSS for it, and if you get taunted early game, you have no QSS, you just pretty much die to him, you know.
Yeah, and then Sunfire Cape is so strong right now, and then you've got the Iceborne Gauntlet, so you still got an amount of wave clear.
Yeah,
it's
of
not as bad
course.
as it has been in previous
But
times.
that was like the caster's excuse that you have no wave clear. Like Nautilus E costs a lot of mana, and it kind of does clear a wave early game, but even late game it doesn't anymore because the minis get too much health. But late game, all tanks have Sunfire and Iceborne. They can't clear waves, and Rammus just has to in a wave, press W, and the wave will die because they will just kill themselves.
Yeah. So it was.
It was pretty clear in that series that Nautilus was not working. So like, I don't see why the casters kept hammering that.
Yeah, and
it was that bad to Rammus. Like, what else did they have to pick?
I think that when they picked the Rammus, they had the Trundle already, and that's a bit of a risky.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
they had Trundle Poppy, and like the Rammus could easily get shred from the Trundle. But the issue was that they were never real team fights when it kind of counted early, where the Trundle would really be super effective against it. He never really got to really use the ultimate and put it down.
Well, I mean, I'll save the game for discussion for later. I just wanted to kind of focus on that Nautilus as a problem with the game 3, and then like, I mean, again, Kuro in the series. So game 1 and 2, he plays the Corki. And even though they won game 2, I don't think they won game 2 because of his Corki.
No, they just won it because of the Ezreal.
Yeah, they won. And
the Echo as well.
He was very much like a bystander in that game. And then in the game 3, his Lissandra's a really, really good pick. The way he played it wasn't ideal, as it were. Like
it really wasn't.
And then
very, very early on, it was an issue though that that was game 4. Never mind.
Now I say even a different issue for both game 3 and 4 is I thought that at a certain point in time, Rock should stop banning Maokai and see if they can just free up all the top laners, ban something else, and just see if all the OP top laners get through. I would hope that Smeb would be confident enough that he feels he can outpressure and win the lane against Duke and become more relevant. And that the fact that 3 of like the 4 main top laners continue to get banned game after game was a huge issue. And I think they should just not ban anything and just see will SKT try to ban them all out.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks a lot when Rock's first ban. So in game 3, Rock's first ban Maokai. Then SKT ban Echo and Rise, and then first pick the Poppy. So at that moment, like
they fucked themselves.
Yeah, because if they'd left it in a situation where they hadn't banned, like if you're going to ban the OP top laners, you've either got to ban them all, or like you've got to make it so you've got to look after your own guy as well, kind of thing. So they're banning out Maokai away from Smeb in that situation. Now, I don't think that you can argue that like Maokai is so much better than Poppy. That, you know what I mean, like
he kind of is, because he destroys the lane versus her, and
what's a better matchup, Poppy versus Maokai or Nautilus versus Poppy? What's the better matchup for the player who's playing the weaker champion in that situation? I would rather see him on Poppy versus Maokai than see him on Nautilus versus Poppy.
Not only that, but even with Maokai's magic resist he gets now, say they pick Maokai first, you pick Poppy Trundle. You pick a support that can shred the tank when he TPs into almost any other lane, and you pick the other good top laner, and they don't really know what else you're going to do. Because like whether they pick the Poppy or they pick the Maokai, both of them can fit into pretty much any team comp, and that's an issue I see. Is that it's just like there's nothing you have to go off of that. Like they don't really show anything, and you either force them to not either you don't ban the Maokai and they have to ban it too, and then maybe the Echo and Poppy come out and it's a bit more fair. Like there are so many other things, but just banning Maokai every single time really early is the issue. Or even if you do, you save it to the last ban. You see, I just think there's better ways to play with it than just kind of putting it on permaban.
I'd like to point out as well that SKT never banned the Maokai. They never banned it once. Rox were the only team. Yeah, Rox were the only team to ban the Maokai, and Smeb can play Maokai. So if I just think Rox experimented with their drafts in this series, but I think they experimented in the wrong way, and they didn't.
They experimented a bit with their drafts, but they never. They never opened up SMAP, which was a huge issue, and the weird thing is because they constantly banned the combination of Maokai and Silver. It's like, but you know how good you guys are yourselves with Maokai and Silver. It's like, yeah, just the way like they always normally play is let Prey be the supportive AD carry, be a utility AD carry. Silver's a great utility AD carry that does a lot of damage. Why don't you try and trade her for something, for Maokai or something? Like, I don't get why they were so focused on playing a different way that they usually do, and then I don't know.
There's just that was my biggest issue is like before we started, it's like I felt a bit disappointed from this series, mainly from pick and ban, from the way that Rox played it. It just seemed so not naive, but they didn't play into how I would think them to carry. Like when I think of Rox Tigers, I think of Smeb, Gorilla, and Peanut being the main carries when you have the traditional carry roles act as more supports and play more supportive style champions.
Yes.
You've got your Ashe, you've got your Sivir, you have your more like teleport as we've gone over with Lissandra, with the Lulu for Kuro. And I just thought that their whole pick and ban style was focusing on their main two traditional carries being the carries, with Peanut still being a carry.
Yeah.
But they seem to almost force out any top lane champion that could actually be a huge carry role. Like a Maokai can carry a team by simply getting onto the AD carry and just destroying him. And I was so surprised that they continued to ban the champion. I mean, SKT banned Ryze every game because obviously Smeb is a much better Ryze than than Duke. But I was just like, I can't believe they kept doing that. And then they would let the Poppy up every time. They didn't try any Kennen. Like they didn't try and really play around their strengths.
Well,
they seem to
in the
same meta dictates.
In the same vein, I would say that the Ryze ban from Maokai, because they banned it every single game as well. I would say that's a very similar train of thought that Rox had about the Maokai. Is yes, we can play the Ryze, but it doesn't fit into the way that we want to play the game right now. But I think that the Maokai does fit into the way that the Rox
that's
show they wanted to play in this series. So that's the distinction. I would say SKT can play Ryze, both Duke and
Faker for sure. Like
Faker, sure, yeah, exactly. So, I get what you're saying, as it were, but I can't help but think if Rox had won, we'd be sitting around having the same conversation about the Ryze ban being like, why did they ban out the Ryze every time?
No, I wouldn't, because I think the Ryze ban makes sense considering
I could
that
understand
they wanted
that,
the first pick, the top lane, and have the Poppy.
But
because if you don't ban Ryze and you give up Ryze in their second rotation, why would you want to do
that? I mean, top lane was first picked every game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's just obvious there's so much pressure being put on it. And I think if you're SKT with Duke, you're going to want, regardless of whether or not it's like whatever Rox pick, you're going to want to play more of a tankier champion. And Ryze can really take advantage of that and scale up super hard.
Well,
and I think they'd rather avoid that. And then you have the issue with Ryze where you can kind of pick him for mid or top.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other issue as well is you think about it in this way. So, like, you just look at the game one alone. Like, there's so many power picks that were banned out, and then SKT basically took all the remaining power picks, and Rox were left with nothing, kind of thing. Like, I always think the best way to start off any best of 5 is to ban out the pockets or the sort of the problematic picks and just leave all the OP shit open and just see what fucking happens, kind of thing.
If you lose to the OP picks, it's normal because you lose to the OP picks. If you lose to something special and you know what you have to adjust in your drafting phase, and you can experiment by leaving some OPs open, which is an issue that I think Rox never did. They never looked out like, all right, let's just leave the OPs. Hey, actually, SKT banned Sivir their first game. I actually didn't know.
Yeah.
I think SKT banned Sivir because they knew they wanted to try and get a top laner.
Yeah,
they didn't want to. They didn't want to leave the Sivir and a top laner open.
But yeah. So I can't. That Nautilus pick really annoyed me because the one time, it really annoyed me. And
I saw it in game 3 again. I was like, no, please.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was surprised that it was in game 3. Like really surprised that they did that in game 3. And like again, let's have a look. So they kind of sorted out the Alistair prioritization in the game 2 because they second rotationed it rather than. Oh wait, no, sorry, no. In game 3, they still first rotationed the Alistair as well. So
yeah. See, and that in that rotation, I was like, I knew
yeah.
SKT was gonna pick away Ezreal in the second rotation. I was like, why are you not picking Ezreal? It was such a huge factor. Prey was super useful in it, super effective. Why do you let Ezreal through? Like, it was so obvious that SKT was gonna pick it away because they realized, okay, we pick this away, bang, it's great Ezreal. Come on, God, they can even fucking swap to mid lane if they want to. Like
the game 2 when they picked Alistar second and they did that so they could leave up mid or AD carry and mid as getting one of them as a potential counter pick.
Yeah, but
so I mean I can understand that, but yeah, picking Alistar
but,
second, picking Alistar super early is just not like I don't care. It's not like the support is going like whether you pick Alistar or whatever is going to determine the end of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I was annoyed game 3 because they should have realized Ezreal was a priority pick. They didn't. They were like, okay, we have Twitch. I mean, okay, I didn't know they had Twitch. So okay, that didn't work out. But then you have going forward, it's like, you're still not prioritizing Ezreal. You pick Corki again.
Yeah, exactly.
Why?
Why would you pick the Corki over the Ezreal?
Fucking Corki at this point?
Yeah.
Because at that point they created a comp that was gonna seriously like damage late game. Because Corki and Graves have okay damage, but when you also put it on the Lissandra, it's like it's not enough because you all have like subpar damage late game, like a sustained damage late game.
Lissandra also had Kuro had a lot of mediocre self ultimates in game 4 too.
Yeah.
Like there were a lot of times where he didn't either hesitate, but he would just be like low health and just self ulted. It's like you're not even near like even if you flash self ulted just to try and create a zone for your team, there was just not a lot there for him. He just would ult and be like, you're not even near anyone relevant to zone or anything.
Yeah, there was also there was a moment where like it was a rare kind of peanut like error on a mechanical level, but when Faker flashed in, like tried to land the Q, I think it's the Q from Vel'Koz and it missed, and then he like cast the ultimate and like managed to take Peanut down with like the very end of the ultimate, as it were. Why didn't Peanut just pop his Kindred ultimate and just walk off, as it were? Like, this guy's already blown Flash and his ultimate. Like if you blow the ultimate, that's a win for you right there, kind of thing.
Down? Maybe it was.
It was up.
It was up. Well, then he might thought he was out of range.
I think I remember the place you're talking about. I
remember the play, but I can't remember if he used it or not.
It was definitely up because I've been back and watched it. Peter in his mind just will have thought, oh, I'll survive this kind of thing. But it's like,
it is
why
deceptive
take that risk?
because like the tiny edges like still hit you and it procs the ult. Like he procced a passive probably again. Yeah, I thought he was gonna die.
I 100% like understand it, like as in, but it's just like, why take the risk? You know what I mean? Like you're in right now in a winning situation. You traded an ultimate for an ultimate and a flash. And that ultimate is a large amount of Vel'Koz's damage, kind of thing. Like he doesn't actually do a lot of damage outside of the ultimate. That's why he's not.
If he lost his spells, it still lost the damage.
But he has to hit every single one of them.
Yeah, he has to hit all the.
It's about proccing the passive. That's the biggest point. Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like, and he's already kind of blown a lot of shit. You know, just pop the ultimate, walk off, job done, kind of thing. Like. You save the ultimate and then you die. Like that's the worst situation to ever be in, is where you don't use your ultimate and die, and the ultimate would have saved your life, because at that moment, like the ultimate will be back up by the time you fucking come up anyway. So, so yeah, that was, and then like that kind of. I always get annoyed when people are like, "Oh, what an amazing play," and it was a good play from Faker. But I always get annoyed when, like, ultimately, like it could have been saved by the other player just not being massively greedy, kind of thing. Like. There's a difference, I think, you know, between somebody making like an amazing play and somebody making like a bold, aggressive play, and the other player messing up, and like, you know what I mean? Like that was, but hey, whatever. So yeah, like I think that it's just the main issue for Rocks in this was just that their drafting told me that they didn't understand how the game is, like the ultimate way to play the game right now, and the way they were playing wasn't the way they played in the regular season, so it's like they weren't playing to their strengths either.
That was like, it's not like they drafted necessarily bad, but like they drafted how SKT should draft, because that's where their strength lies, but not where their own, like they didn't draft for their own strengths, and that was the biggest issue. And they drafted like subpar picks like the Nautilus and the
that was the biggest issue I kept seeing. I think we were talking about this, Peter, during it was just they kept not picking towards what I thought their strength. Like they kept picking to not the Ku Tiger's way of playing, and it was just game in, game out. They're just like, you guys aren't a mid 80 carry team.
Exactly.
You're like you have the non-traditional carries, and there's still you can still win with those in this meta.
Yeah, of course. That was definitely not an issue.
Yeah, Rocks didn't play to their strengths. It's not like they didn't play to their own strengths because of confidence, but then they didn't also like. Yeah, so by not playing to their own strengths, they shafted the really good players on their team, and they enabled the not so good players on the team. And one of their players really did not play well at all.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, because you can see like that game 3 comp. It's really not bad, but like you need Kuro to like be like have great ults, great setups, and then you need Prey to have good flanks and good ambush. Like there is a lot of potential in that comp. Yeah, you don't have the Kinradil to keep the Twitch alive, which I feel like they were super underused because I don't think he was ever on the Lampshire Spite. I was like, I like we're gonna see some mad engages. He's gonna ambush in the middle of the team. They're gonna Kindred ult on top of him. Lasana is gonna come in, CC everybody. It didn't happen. Like like it's a comp with a lot of potential, but like they seemed unpracticed with it, and it is focused on their lesser players, and that's disappointing. Because
and then when you look at to move on to game 4, like I can't get behind that Corky prioritization in game 4. I can't in good conscience say that was a good pick, because that was not the AD carry that they needed in that team comp to make it work. They needed an AD carry that rips the late game apart, not one that.
This is why, like, I get game 3 not picking Ezreal, but game 4 you still not picking Ezreal blows my mind. Like, I don't get how like Coma. I'm pretty sure they did not prepare Ezreal for this series, or almost not. Like, I'm pretty sure because they started Lucian. I think they want to play pretty aggressive in lane, but they realized, all right, we should focus on Ezreal. They did in game 3, they did in game 4, and they won with it. It was like, but then Nofi doesn't seem to realize that should have been a priority, which is weird because they started with it. They started with the Ezreal, but then Coma realized it. Oh my god, we have to pick this away. And then Nofi's like,
all right, you can. We've come in this. We want to play a lot of Ezreal. Okay, game 3 comes around. Right, we're going to take away that Ezreal from you. All right, you do that. Like, like it was. It's, as you said, like.
It was weird. And then even then, like that comp is still okay, but they had to win early. But then they kept losing like all these early skirmishes. A big part about the Rammus was very
not only
strong.
that, but it was. We were talking about it too. Is that Cassiopeia Faker didn't go back until like the 10th minute to get his tier. Like he did when he went back to get tier. He had tier, swiftness boots, and a blasting wand. He had almost a 2,000 gold above the tier, and then came back and was like, he's like, when I saw that, I was like, oh my god, Faker may cost them the game simply by not going back too soon.
Oh, I know they cost it, but it just delayed.
They needed that tier, like they needed the scaling to kick in as soon as physically possible, because they have a tier on Bang, a tier on Faker, and then they need up until then the only thing they had going was Duke. But if Duke gets if they team fight in mid game and Duke gets hit by Trundle ultimate, they're going to have 3 champions that are starting to scale, and then a very, very soft tank.
Yeah,
and it just never happened. They just had skirmishes, and Rox never forced a 5v5 for like 15 minutes straight. It was just they putzed around
until it's too late when you have the tiers scaled up, and
at
that point, like even though I knew it, like the game was going to take a while because it's hard to fucking close game out to the Rammus, because they have to rely on the TP time to actually ever engage. But like I was like, this 30 minutes in, like I mean, it's gonna take a while, but SKT's gonna win this game right now because they have the scaling and they're never ever gonna lose team fights with this comp. It's too strong, and Strox Tigers has like a scaling till here, and then SKT's all the way up. They can't even see it all the way up here,
and again, the series was good, and it was back and forth, and like Rocks got really unlucky in that game 3 as well, the way it kind of worked out, because they lost that team fight, then they lost their entire base, then they managed to get the Baron, but then they lost like another team fight kind of thing. So like that game, I thought getting 3 was Rocks were going to win it based on how the sort of the trend in the game was going, but SKT just managed to out team fight
I
them.
mean, yeah, they were never winning fights, but it was definitely close. I definitely thought the last big team fight, it was like Prey was getting old, but because of what Duke did, it was like, oh my god, you just like completely saved that fight, made the win.
Yeah, well, what bothered me is when this 4,000 word article that I wrote about why Rocks Tigers were going to win. That, by the way, like before the game series had like 7, 8 retweets. After this game, it had like 30. Like fucking, now we'll retweet it. No one's retweeting my articles.
I
Support me. Retweet them to kick me in the face. But anyway, I wanted people to do that because it's more Skrilla for me. That was the thing. Even when I lose, I win. That's brilliant, isn't it? Every time someone goes, I'm like, thank you for the Skrilla. Thank you for the Skrilla.
That's
yeah, it's all about the Skrilla. All whatever money I made. I think I've probably made about an extra £3 of it. So, but anyway, that £3 was worth the Skrilla.
Myself a pint, mate.
Get you a nice sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. Buy myself a salad on my lunch tomorrow because I'm trying to eat healthy these days. But
yeah,
like I noted in that thing that one of the points I made was SKT throughout the series hadn't looked like a team that was good at team fighting when it was equal situations, and I went through examples and stuff like that. But in this series, they were really good at team fighting with equal gold. So it's like, because Rocks were the best team fighting team this entire split.
I think they were all right this entire. I mean, no, not entire split. I think SKT was picking up in their team fight a lot, but I just think they just had good comps. And like the point is, like what you're saying, like they had worse team fighting at the Rocks, but SKT was team fighting with their strengths, or team fighting with Bang and Faker having to carry the team fights, and then Duke being a very good tank in the team fights. Rocks was team fighting with Prey and Kuro trying to carry, but that's not how they ever win team fights. Not since spring last year.
Yeah. So
that was the biggest disappointment. Yeah, we've already talked about that. Anything else about this series, or?
I thought it was quite funny where all the Rocks had to come get their MVP award. No, sorry, their KDA awards after they've just lost, because like they just showed how dominant they were in the regular season and how it just did not matter at all in the actual playoffs kind of thing. Like,
I want to like talk about like the format, how I feel. I'm not entirely
sure.
Yeah,
I was going to bring that up, but
it is a blessing and a curse being first because I got to see all that stuff. But I feel like that they would have maybe understand like the meta better if they had been able to play a couple of best of fives before the finals.
Maybe one would have helped. I think more than one is actually a disadvantage. But I think there's a case. I think half the reason is like when you talk about the like gauntlet style system, the reason why it should be difficult for a team to run through it like SKT did, because they won 3 best of 5s to win the series, is because you should get exposed in those best of 5s.
I mean, and they kind of did. Like the only thing we hadn't seen before was the Belcos.
Yeah,
it was not like amazing.
But the problem was that Rocks didn't really use all this information they had properly. You know what I mean? Like, and then Rocks' like surprises weren't surprises because they were shit.
What surprise? Like Nautilus was not even a surprise. Like the Twitch was a surprise. Well,
exactly. One of the points I made was like Rocks hadn't had to play a serious game for about a month because that's when they got locked into first place in the regular season. So, but they didn't. I didn't feel like Rocks came into this using that pick and ban advantage that they should have had, because Rocks should have had it. SKT should have known nothing about Rocks, and Rocks should have known a lot about SKT. But that's not what happened. But then one of the also points I made is because KT rolled over in the playoffs, that fucked over Rocks by like if KT had managed to take it to a 5-game series, or even take a single game, or even not get their ass handed to them in one game, then they could have seen, like, I think that Rocks would have had more information. But I feel like even though Rocks had a lot of SKT information on SKT, it wasn't enough to affect the balance that the warm up benefit. You get.
I think they knew more than enough. They didn't focus on themselves enough. Like that was all. That's gonna always be the issue with this series. It's like they weren't playing like Rocks is supposed to play. I mean, they were just like not the team that we had seen throughout the regular season. Not focused on the right things. Like it's like they were focusing on Maokai and Sivir because that's what fucking SKT was trying to play like almost every game, and they worked very well. But they kept focusing on that. They didn't adapt in the big bands, and they themselves just didn't focus on their own picks, which was an issue. Like Yeah, okay, SKT didn't know much about rocks, but apparently rocks didn't know much about rocks themselves. So
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. So yeah,
they still have the advantage of the gauntlet. I just feel that they might have realized, if they had played a series before, they might have realized they were wrong about their own things. I'm not even sure. I think they right now they realize they're wrong. I hope so, at least. I don't know if he realizes that what he did wrong. But yeah.
Overall, I like the gauntlet style playoffs because I think it's very clever, and I think it's the best way of rewarding like high regular season finishes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's just that my always big issue with the way that these League of Legends league work is the fact that the regular season, once you get into playoffs, like I never feel like there's enough of a difference. So when you've got like a regular sports league, or sorry, like okay, so take like the UK, take a football league for example. If you win the regular season, you just win the tournament. There's no playoffs in the English Premier League kind of thing. Like you get first, you win the thing.
There kind of is in Belgium, but it's a bit different. Like I mean, just the playoffs is like you have the top 6 teams and battling out again. Like, but just play against each other the whole time until the guy with the most points ends up first. Because they split like after the regular season, they split the points in half.
Yeah.
So the first place is still first, but with a less advantage. And then they have to play 2 or 3 games against each other, against all the other teams, and then the one with the most points at the end of the playoffs is a winner. But
that's quite unique in football. Like but my point is like in La Liga and in Bundesliga and in the Premier League, like if you just come first place, you just win straight out because coming first place is a big deal and should be celebrated in a regular season. So, and then they have like those, like a more sort of playoff style tournament, but those are a separate tournament and like teams like get through on seeding and stuff like that. So my issue is that League of Legends League struggle to make the regular season impactful enough going into playoffs because great, you won the regular season. Your gift is you have to play 1 less best of 5 or 2 less best of 5s in the playoffs kind of thing. But sometimes playing those best of 5s can help you because it can actually help your team overcome issues, as we saw with TSM in NA.
I also think for SKT this series.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm still not sure how well they prepared for Jenner, but I do think they grew and they got a lot of practice out of it. Considering they were the week before got beaten by KT.
And they looked individually better as well. Like you looked at Faker Zillion versus Jenner. It was not good. You looked at it versus Rocks. It was insane. Like
I definitely think Faker. Like playing versus Jenner was like. I mean, he was not looking amazing. Like you also mentioned in your article, he wasn't looking too great.
Yeah.
But he was playing better versus KT, and he was pretty much playing like at his peak again in versus Rocks. Like I saw so little mistakes from him.
Exactly. So.
Yeah, he had none of that like playing too far forward.
Yeah.
The other issue I have.
He didn't get ganked once.
No, I mean, well, a lot of the games they put pressure elsewhere.
They did try and pressure him, but he was playing very defensively. Because that Valkos game, he was just sacrificing farm because he knew Smep was trying to gank him.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. But he never got successfully ganked in lane once, which is that's bang out right there, like kind of thing, like it's his dream. So he was always playing with the correct amount of pressure and understanding the way the lane was going in terms of his map pressure, which is something that he hadn't done at multiple points during the regular season because he was just like he was playing Karma like under the enemy's turret, like trying to siege it. And the jungler just comes around and kills him. Like he's like, oh fucking hell! That was none of that. So
yeah, Faker definitely had a very good.
Yeah, like I do think Duke deserves the MVP of that series because it's the old caveat of he's the player who stepped up the most in terms and also when you look at like his job was to neutralize like the best player in the world, whereas so like he kind of had like quite a difficult task to do and.
Plus his team fighter presence is so good.
And then like the way he played that Rammus pick as well, like he had like 100% kill contribution at points in that game. When it was like 8 kills, he was running around with like 4 kills.
Yeah, he ended the game with 14 out of 15 kills.
Exactly. Like
so pretty good.
Yeah, and when he was put into the situation where he was given the stronger matchup, he exploited that advantage to its fullest. But then when he was put in the situation where he was put in the weaker matchup in terms of Smeb got the Poppy and he got the pick that's not Poppy Echo or Maokai, he still had a lot of presence, and that's something that Smeb didn't manage to do. A, because he was on fucking Nautilus. Well, because he was unorthodox. But at least in that aspect, he showed that he had something else to play once those three were off the table. Whereas Smeb didn't seem to have that, but he does. That's what annoys me. He definitely does have it. He just decided not to play it.
The team decided to play with him as a tank, which was weird.
Another issue I had with the way the whole gauntlet performs is that if you have a gauntlet system like this where the winning team can secure it a month in advance, and then you change the meta, you should not change the meta. Like, you should play on the previous patch for the playoffs, because regardless of how scrims go, if, say, Rocks played the way they played on Saturday versus Jin Air or KT, and they got at least one best of 5 before they played the final, they would have still been able to beat those two teams because they're sure better man for man. And even if they didn't truly understand what prioritize, they would have been able to beat them in a best of 5 and then move on and adjust based on that. And it showed that they did not have any, they really didn't adjust.
Yeah, well, they did adjust from game 1, but
I mean,
yes, but I mean, they didn't. You didn't see.
No, I get the point.
Yeah.
I get the point.
And it's just so dumb that your reward is you have no chance of outside of scrims
that is
to see what the new meta and new champ picks are.
The complete issue with regular season, that is the point. Like, you have regular season, but regular season is like 7-8 patches. Like, what the fuck does that matter that you were doing great in the first 2 weeks when you have to play playoffs? It's nothing the same. The game is completely different. Like, in regular sports, the game is fucking the same the entire year. Like, but like, what this is what's the point of regular season when the only thing you have to do is make sure you know how to adapt. Then you win regular season games because you know what the meta does. That's why KT is often very good in the regular season. They're very good at adapting to the new patches. But individually, then when they have to go for complete knockout games, it's a lot harder, and that's why they're also not do that great in big tournaments, you know.
And the part of the problem as well is LoL is particularly volatile with its patches in the way that no other esport game is, and particularly.
But that's because they release a new one every 2 weeks.
At the random worst times, at the most random worst times, is that what infuriates me the most is that we've seen it time and time again where there's a significant change, whether it be right before Worlds or right before the teams start to play for Worlds, and you just look back and go, what was the point of the whole what's the point of a regular season if you change how the game is played and it just happens to fall into the team's hands and go, oh, we're 6th place, but every single player that we have, they're champions that they've been comfortable on for their entire career are in meta currently. And we can there's no rhyme or reason, and it just infuriates me.
Look at spring last year. The reason why Rocks got first is because they were dominating until Cinderhook patch came. Then they were sucking, but they still had so many points that they ended up first in the ladder. And it's like, well, this team can't play in this meta. But they're first, so I mean they have to play in the finals.
Yeah,
they're fucking dumpstered by sub players. I mean,
if you make the only thing I can really compare it to, because the only sport I've followed that isn't League of Legends is StarCraft 2. In StarCraft 2, when they do a GSL, they basically play the entire GSL on the one patch, basically, and you will see trends occur throughout the GSL. So you will see that,
of course, because people find new things in the same patch, and that also happens in LoL. But there's never enough time to find different ways to counter things.
The only time you see it in LoL is at Worlds, because you have a long enough tournament being played on one single patch. There is no other tournament that has since been long enough where you've seen things
evolve.
Where you can go, okay, these are the picks, but these are its counters, and we finally have enough time to see these counters in action that we can.
That's always my issue with League of Legends, is I don't feel like the League of Legends, this Riot, give the game enough time to evolve naturally on its own, and always change it artificially, so that teams always know what the strong picks are, but they never know what the way to beat. They never work out a way to beat the strong picks, because 2 weeks later,
the strong pick is just not good anymore.
Yeah, the strong pick is no longer good anymore, and now it's something else that's really strong. So, in that aspect, I would just like it sometimes, because it happens all the time. there are examples of a pick being thought as really strong, everyone playing the fuck out of it, and then it turns out that actually it's not that strong at all, kind of thing. Like Darius at Worlds last time, for example. At the start, everyone was coming and going, "It's ridiculous, it's the most OP shit ever." But then it
People
it was
start
actually
figuring out how to play against it. You know?
yeah, exactly, and it was actually like the Fiora that was the really fucking the big dirty.
Yeah, I think the first week we saw all the way Darius, almost no Fiora, and then by the end of this, when you were in the group stage, it's like, who the fuck plays Darius? He's such a shitty champion.
Yeah, as soon as like I think it was like even after week 1, the first week we saw Darius, and it was just like his viability just took a nosedive after week 1. They're like, oh, he's so easy to kite, and you just can never do anything. Like you TP in and get kited, and then you die, and you don't have any impact.
Yeah, so I would like it if Riot would be more hands off with development, but they're never going to do that as a company because they've actually increased the rate at which they've released patches over their time rather than decreased them. I will say that they at least are sort of learning because they're now going to release this big elemental dragon patch after
See, that's an issue. That's what they should do more. Like that's what they sometimes do now, but they still apply so many tiny patches in between that still have pretty big impacts. They should focus on they should let their game evolve. Like say oh, we spring split on this patch, and we sometimes hotfix it when we realize something is broken. We change it, but we don't run a lot of other changes out of nowhere on different champions because we feel like it. Like they should focus on one patch that worked, say the Worlds patch, and then say, all right, we're working on a new patch, so where the game is new, with the mid-season mid-season mage update, whatever they call it, and that's then a new game. That's a new part of the way, and then they get an entire new split to find ways to abuse the patch to see strong picks and let the meta game evolve itself instead of they constantly forcing it to evolve. Which is not a thing, because that's not evolving. That's just butchering and
and then
if they would do that, the game would be so much better, and the regular season would matter more because the entire regular season would be pretty much the same game.
The
beginning of the season is not the same thing as it is right now in playoffs.
Yeah, I would.
When they change stuff, and you saw Echo, that shit needs to be changed. That's fine if you're changing those things. But the fact that Echo became so huge,
they first made Echo a problem with the patches, and now they have to fix him with other patches. But if they hadn't done those patches, because that's not what they should do, they should focus on the mid-season big patch. Then Echo never becomes such a big. He might become a thing again, something niche, something for mid lane. But he's never going to become that suppressive top laner for a couple of weeks, and then oh shit, we have to fix this again, even though it's your own fucking fault that he's there.
Yeah, and then you've also got to think about it in the aspect as well as is people never realize there's so little organic innovation in the game nowadays because the patch dictates what's strong all the time. So there's no
natural evolution from the meta.
The meta is 100% artificial and is 100% dictated by Riot as to what they want to be strong and what they don't want to be strong. And we see picks like Mordekaiser, for example. One tournament when people are playing it a lot, and then now it's never seen again, kind of thing. That's not if you're going to introduce dumb champions, at least let them be dumb. Don't introduce them for a week and then get rid of them again.
You mean change the way the champion plays completely to the point where he's no longer viable outside of one specific lane?
Yeah,
and then nerf it so that he really can't even play that position anymore.
What patch is League of Legends on right now? It's on
6.8.
6.8. Okay, just to make this clear, so the game is on 6.8. So if you just follow the way that numbers work, there's only 6.9, and then you have to have 7.0 realistically. So we are 4 months into the year, and they've nearly run out of numbers.
6.9, but they started actually with 5.22, I think, because that was already preseason. They were not calling it 6.0, but that was already with the entire preseason patch was played on 5.22 or 5.23. I don't know.
Well, just
which was 4 patches after the Worlds patch to begin with. It's how do you have 4 patches between Worlds and the next season already?
Season 3 had 16, Season 4 had 21, Season 5 had 24, and we're already at 8.
We're
in April.
There are a lot of patches in this game, and
why got the preseason patch.
I don't read patch notes anymore because they're all the time. They're constant, and I never get a chance to. I just get somebody else to summarize it for me. I've got one of those supermodels that does stuff for me, and she summarizes all the patch notes for me. Very, very,
You know how
very
annoying it is to
service.
play a game and then 2 weeks later the game's pretty much completely different.
Exactly. That's part of the reason why I never bother to read them, because it's like I might not play this game for like fucking a month, and then I've spent a lot of time reading patch notes and it wasn't fucking impactful. So yeah. Patch your game less, Riot. I know all of Riot are watching this right now, so just patch your
Yeah,
game
well, they
less.
fucking should, because they should realize that the constant patching it hurts their esports scene. Like it makes the complete regular season null and void.
Yeah.
It may hurt the scene, but the bigger issue is it has nothing to do with the show, but it has a D and it ends with a Q, and that's the bigger issue that needs to be solved first.
Well, yeah, but then I'm curious. No.
But no, it just there's certain issues that I see with the way the system is set up and the way that we know Riot is going to continue to release patches. They're not going to stop this. So if they know that, I think OGN or LCK, whatever you want to call them, should start to add more teams into the playoffs and change the gauntlet style into a seeded style, where you actually which would be very similar to the way the LCS is at the moment, where you have 3v6, 5v4, and then you have them seeded into one first and second. I think that's the best way to do it, simply because you can't do a gauntlet style and hope that they don't change it right before you begin into the gauntlet, or like the last week, like it happened here, and they have 1 week of games and then it goes right into the gauntlet.
What I would probably prefer the format to be changed is I would want to keep the round robin regular season, but only have 1 round of it rather than 2, and then in the second round I instead have like a really, really long playoffs where it's like even like triple elimination, if that's such a thing.
Please God, no.
Where teams are seeded into that, or double elimination, basically, but just like a really long best of 5 kind of. Yeah, so like
that could be a thing.
Yeah, so other than the teams that finish bottom of the regular season round robin,
but then you kind of have to play with 8 teams, right? Because
so then it quickly goes to like an 8-team, and it's like they're sort of the way that it works. So like the 2. That's why I think you could even make a triple elimination. So like if you could even make a triple elimination, now the 9 and 10 teams literally start off right all the way in the loser bracket, and then some teams sit into losers, and some teams put straight into the winners.
Not complete triple, but just for the first couple of rounds.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't necessarily do that.
That seems insane. I would just do double. Overkill. You could just do double elimination.
Well, I just want it to run. I just want there to be enough games so that it can run for a long time. So that is the
way. Best of 5 is still pretty long.
You mean instead of having a playoffs that lasts with less games than a week
they're never going to do that
season?
Because when they start, they're playing 4 patches before the actual mid-season invitational worlds, because that's like so many patches later, and they have to play it on the same patch, because otherwise you have the beginning of the playoffs being played on a different patch. So like.
Well, either way, like I mean, us sitting around talking about it's probably not going to get stuff sorted, even though those people watch the show, because they don't take my advice and other things. So.
No, well, it's a bit over drastic.
Yeah, but anyway. I would just like to see. I don't even know. I don't think the issue with the regular season not mattering as much is unique to LCK though.
No,
it's
also like chasing the player formats.
Unique to League of Legends.
Yeah. It's unique to this esports alone, just because of the amount of patching. Like, because like it didn't matter for like LCS either. Like Immortals, 5-1, they got booted out in the playoffs. Like it was nothing. And
I do get annoyed by, not annoyed. I do sometimes think it would be nice if I followed an esport where 85% of the matches that play don't actually matter. That would be nice to follow like, so when I like CSGO, for example, it seems like every fucking game matters in CSGO, and at least
they have new leagues coming up, so we'll see what happens there.
The E-League for the 2020.
The difference though is that the E-League, instead of it being 10 teams, it's like 24.
Yeah.
The thing is like CSGO getting a league is a bit like a girl who who's like looks great. It's a bit like if Cara Delevingne decided to put 5 stone on, and like you've already got it, you've already nailed it out of the park. People love your tournament format. Don't change that to the worst system.
They're just adding it. It's not a change. They're still gonna have a lot.
No.
The masters are still all gonna be there.
Okay.
So
well,
it's not.
They're just adding this in. Yeah.
Because it's for broadcasting. They try to do it it's for TV.
Okay.
Because they have offline tournaments that exist, like offline kind of regular seasons and everything that kind of feed into tournaments. So at least there's like the incentive there is that say they have 8 teams and the 4 of them make it into a 16 group tournament, and then they go off and they play the regular tournament. So it's more of like feeder leagues, not an actual like league like this. And I think the E-League is the first one that's like this, and we'll see whether or not that works.
Well, I mean, there's CS:GO talk. I shouldn't have brought it up, really, but
well, I mean, it's the only comparison we'll have to end, like, because League has been doing this for almost 3 years now, and there's nothing else. No other esport has had this kind of rigid structure.
This is the 4th year of League.
4th year of leagues.
I mean,
I could tolerate these leagues if there were more one-off tournaments throughout the year, kind of thing. Like, I do think that League of Legends would benefit drastically from, like, say just say 1 or 2 more international tournaments. So, like,
already, that would be amazing.
Like, so let MLG do one. Like, how much is it going to be? Like, so let MLG do a big international tournament because they probably fucking love that, and then let DreamHack do one or something like that. These teams, you know, it's not like these broadcasters wouldn't broadcast League of Legends if they got the opportunity. I just feel like Riot is stifling the interest in their own game by meaning that everything is so sort of rigid and clearly set that there's only about, you know, 5 times a year that I get really now I love League of Legends. There's only about 5 times a year that I get like really excited to watch League of Legends, and that's
Worlds, Spring Finals, Summer Finals, and IM World Championship. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
But even are those exciting? I mean, we'll talk about that the MSI episode, but I'm not excited for MSI in the least bit.
Well, I mean, I don't want to sound cynical, but if you don't get excited about the international tournament, like, don't follow the, you know, like, at that point, what else can be done?
My issue is looking at this and going.
For him, it's like, it's not exciting because we know he's going to win.
SKT's going to win and not lose drop a game.
But, okay, that's not anyone's fault, though, is it? Really, it's not Riot's fault that Western teams are shit. They give them more than enough money to become good. Like right now, it's like you complain. It's like you've gone to go see the new Captain America movie, and are like, oh, there's a lot of action, and you know, there was a lot of people running around in costumes and stuff like that. Like, where was like, you know, like?
But it's probably going to be
romance.
Where was the romance? There's going to be romance in that movie, by the way. So.
Well, yeah, but like.
Yes, it's going to be a complete fake thing. I mean, the only part I'm excited about for MSI is to watch Flash Wolves.
No, but
that's it.
But my point is if you're like, right now, it's like you're complaining about something that can't be fixed at all, and you're complaining about like someone else needs to fix it.
It actually can be fixed. They should play fucking more international with the best teams in the world, and not just with, oh, we're gonna have each region represented. Like if they play tournaments where just they have to go through seeding or go through the qualifiers, so more Korean teams could play, that would be a lot more interesting.
Well, I mean, I guess I could argue that, you know, by this point, Korea probably deserves an extra seed at MSI, or deserves an extra seed
at MSI would be cheating because then, you know.
Or deserves,
I would still like to
or at
see
least
like
deserves an extra seed at Worlds.
Like, I would still be excited to watch like the 3rd, 4th, and 5th team from each region.
It's still gonna be cool because we get to see which major region loses its first seed spot at Worlds.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it'll be NA.
Is that really a spoiler?
Just
looking at the teams, it's like,
pretty exciting.
What happens if international wildcard gets out of fulfills the seeding requirement? Would you live in a world where like a Pool A team would be like Brazilian team of the week?
No, it's that one team. It's that one specific team normally, or at least a region. So that Brazilian team.
So. Like
I would be more upset about which team lost. Like, I think that team would want to like grab some pills and, you know, maybe have a bit too many.
I do. So here's one for you. So will the MSI? Will that mean that, because at the moment, or rather in the last Worlds, the 4 teams that were seeded into Pool A were like a Chinese, Korean, North American, European team. And then the Taiwanese team was seeded into the B and then Pool both 3. Taiwanese teams were put into Pool B. Can we get to a situation
where we have 3 Taiwanese teams?
Where maybe a Chinese team gets to be put into Pool C rather than a
C? No, that's not going to happen, dude. Why would they get put in Pool C?
Because there's an NA and a European team in Pool C, isn't there?
Yep. Because the way it works, NA and EU
good
have pool 1 or pool
Yeah,
A, pool
maybe.
B, and pool C.
Yeah,
maybe
so
maybe you
where
swap
Taiwan-
up the pools.
Like, I think the reason they pulled this up is because there's no incentive to be first in Taiwan for Worlds, because you're, regardless of whether you're first or second, you're pool B. Like,
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
no ability to
success.
go up or down.
yeah, so my point is that, like, I mean, I absolutely at this point would say that Taiwan absolutely deserve that third spot. It's actually ridiculous that they continue that they don't get.
That's not going to happen probably.
Well, I would
Next
say if they
spot.
don't get the third spot for the next one, that's actually just massive. That's just Riot showing their massive bias at that point, realistically, because
But
like-
come on, they do this every year. Like, you know, they're biased as fuck towards
like
NA
in the
and
in the Champions League, the reason that like the Spanish, German, and English
Yeah.
leagues get 4 spots is because those
Yeah,
are
of course.
the teams that perform the best at the Champions League.
Yeah,
Like,
if a region, if a land does well in the Champions League, then they get more spots. Or
yeah, exactly.
I know it's
So-
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the situation, I think that should be the same model in League Legends. So, like, I
They
would,
might change it now. I mean, it's already better what they're doing now.
but I'm not even saying take a spot away from it. I'm just saying that Taiwan deserve that third spot, like, basically. And I think, you know, just Taiwan deserve that third spot. I would like to see if Korea got a 4th spot, but I can understand people saying it's unfair or whatever, but it would give you more entertaining games. So it's not really unfair for the fans, is it?
For the Western
I mean,
fans,
we'll get into MSI for
yeah,
the
yeah,
MSI
we'll get
thing.
that next week.
The last topic we have today is Challenger Korea. I don't think any of us know when the actual games are being played.
No, can't find it. But Ever's
But I
playing
believe it's going to be Ever versus Kongdu and
Yeah.
MVP versus
Sten versus first.
Spenu.
Nine versus
Okay.
second.
I'll go out on a limb.
Because Ever's the number 1,
yeah, so
yeah,
you play
MVP's
versus
number
10.
2, and then you have Kongdu and Spenu, and it switches, like Kongdu, the 10th will
Yeah,
play
yeah.
the first, 9th, yeah.
I'll go out on a limb here and say that both Kongdu and Spenu will get back into the.
I can see Kongdu lose, but I'm not sure how good Ever is right now, so I don't think so. I mean, Spenu shouldn't lose at all, but Kongdu can lose, even though they
Kongdu
probably
can,
won't. But
yeah, like Kongdu can, but I don't think they will. But I mean, like, the problem is I know that teams don't really scrim Kongdu a lot, and Kongdu generally do scrim Korean challenger teams and Taiwanese teams
That's sad.
and LPL teams. So, like,
Or
I tell you what, just because I've got the platform, I'll give people a little insight into the way that scrimming works in Korea. So, Rox and SKT scrim each other a shit ton because best teams in the world, they love it. The Banks in this thing, you know, we think of Rox as like a sister team because we're so close to them because they fucking scrim each other a lot. KT get to scrim them both a good amount as well. And like Jin Air and Samsung less so, but they still get that opportunity to. Longzhu as well, and TJ to a lesser extent, but that kind of improves throughout the way it works. Spenu and Kongdu get very limited scrim time with like big LCK teams because generally they just scrim each other or they scrim the second team they've got internally. So what they actually generally do is A, scrim each other, B, scrim Korean challenger teams, and then C, scrim like Chinese teams because Chinese teams and Korean teams still scrim with each other. But they actually do it less this year than they did it last year. And one of the issues that they had last year with it was the fact that the Chinese teams got obliterated in scrims every single time. Like there was to the point where like EDG when they were scrimming SKT like would lose like 12 out of 12 games and that kind of thing. And in Korean mentality, you can't beat us in scrims and I want to fucking play you. So like this is why Taiwanese teams are generally forced to scrim Korean challenger teams because they can't get the ticket with the big Korean teams because the big Korean teams don't think they're good enough to scrim, as it were. So in the mindset of Korean teams, like people don't realize this, Korean teams and Korean players don't really give a fuck about foreign teams, as it were, because like I can guarantee if CJ went to an international tournament, they would go there with the mindset of we're gonna win. That would be their mindset. They wouldn't go in there with the mindset of like, you know, oh, there's going to be
TSM is here. We should be scared.
Yeah, they say nice things in interviews and they make it sound like, you know, they really respect the teams and stuff like that. But
They will always say nice thing in interviews because that is that's their cultural leaning. It's the entire cultural leaning of everyone but China.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't really kind of consider them, you know, like on the same level, as it were. And when they go play for foreign teams, they do it because A, it's a good way to get to Worlds. And playing at Worlds has a lot of prestige, even if you do it from a foreign team.
Mm.
But B, it also comes with like the salary and the chance to live in a foreign country, which for some Koreans
It's a big thing.
is what is a big thing. Again, that's certain people. It will be the same in any country. Certain people will quite like the idea of going live in a foreign country. Certain people will dislike that idea, as it were. So you look at players like. You know, and then sometimes players will go to a foreign country and find out they don't actually like it. So you look at players like Save, for example, who really, or Dade, for example, who really kind of struggled in China because they wasn't what they thought they were getting themselves into. But then you've got players like Imp or Rookie who fucking love it over there. So it just depends on the individual mentality of the player in question. So yeah, that's a bit of insight for you into the way that Korean teams work. Is there anything else you want to discuss?
That's all for me. I mean, we were touched on MSI, but we're going to do a short
No,
little
we'll do an episode
preview
next
beforehand, where we really go deep in laughing at a few teams.
Sorry for crap.
Specifically, two of them.
By the way, for fans, sorry for crapping out on discussing Korean promotion because none of us here actually know much about it.
I have no idea, one, when it is happening. Two, I have no idea about the Challenger teams because it is difficult to get the interest to watch Challenger teams when I have to watch Spennu and Kongdu already.
Yeah, I mean, I watched.
And 3 Korean Challenger sucks ass, so they're very likely to not win anyway. So it's not even, you know.
Yeah, like when you
Sad,
talk about like the leagues that I watched, the league I watched most is LZK. Then it's NA Challenger. I know it's just a weird drug for me. I love it. And then it's NA LCS, and then EU LCS, and then LPL, and then like European Challenger, and then Korean Challenger. I basically never watch it. Oh, sorry, I watch LSPL more than I watch LPL, and more than I watch EU LCS as well, because there are certain players I like in LSPL. So yeah, but I choose my league prioritization purely based on what I like. But it's just no one here really follows Korean Challengers, so I don't want to talk about stuff I don't understand because that's not how I do stuff. I know certain people love to talk about shit that they don't know nothing about, but that's not my style personally. So.
No, I believe all of us for the Challenger believe that believe not about how the strength of the other two, but we think Spennu is going to be good enough to survive, and Kongdu has the chance to lose.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how our views are. Is that we view from the strength of the LCK teams, not of the strength of the Challenger teams.
Because
so
Challenger
that's
teams are in general
our viewpoint.
Poor funduds and have so little. They
Yeah.
never win.
Yeah. I would also say as well, like we'll cover the games like when they happen. I'll watch them and then we'll break them down on the show because it's Korea Talk, but we can't talk about stuff we don't know anything about. So sorry.
That's why if MSI we get next week, so I get to look at all the other teams that are going MSI.
I think the number of people who watch Korean Challenger in the West is probably like 2. So
yeah, I think so too. About 2 or 3 people watch Korean Challenger.
Yeah, so you're gonna watch the international wildcard tournament to catch up on
just the finals.
Super
massive esports.
Just the finals. Don't get me wrong. I only watch the finals.
That's the most ironic nickname, isn't it? Ever ironic team name ever. Super massive. Not really. Actually, very small and inconsequential esports. Why do Brazilian teams always fail to get to MSI? This is a big question.
Again, the Turkish teams for some reason.
They should just use the Korean excuse. We didn't like the food there was a big issue.
Well, they have also the excuse of jet lag, lag.
No, they don't. It was in Mexico.
Lag. Oh yeah, okay, it wasn't jet lag this time, but actual LAN lag and stuff, or I don't know.
Because the server isn't there.
Yeah, exactly, stuff like that.
Can't wait for Japanese teams to start doing really well. That's where we're going to
Still not happening though. I mean,
do they have their own server yet?
Yeah. For a year now, I think.
People don't realize how much the rest of Asia fucking hates Japan as a country, as it were. Like,
no, I believe China and Korea hate each other for different things. Korea and Japan hate each other for different things.
Oh, yeah,
Japan and China, like all 3 of the large nations in Asia, hate each other for all different reasons.
Yeah.
And some of them are like hundreds of years old.
Some of them
definitely Japan and China. That's like, why are you
Japan China was back like, man, 1400s.
Yeah.
Silly. They're still mad at each other for that stuff.
Anyway, thanks for watching the show. See you all next week.
And they say English and French have grudges. Jesus. Bye.
Next week we'll preview MSI, and if Korean Challenger has happened, we will talk about it, but we don't know if it's going to happen.
Wow. Okay.
Hey.
If it has happened.